Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you might be. I am Nicole BZ, and you know everything. Ahoy, hoy. Okay, so I'm going to jump right into it because I realized when I was recording the Method to the Madness, which is really about optimizing your own systems for success. And that's a really big topic, right? Like I have so many different hacks and so many different tried and tested and proven methodologies to make your madness your magic. And that episode was like blew out at like 40 minutes. I felt like I needed to resource you with an actual method, right? And firstly, let me just say that all of this is like teased out to the end that you will end up with a ball of yarn instead of a fucking sweater if you check out the Anti-Business School. I was going to say book club. No, it's the Quantum Business Book Club, the Anti-Business School. It's all available for free for now, but possibly ever. So there's no urgency or false scarcity or bullshit sales going on here. Not that I have any problem with sales. I think sales is problem solving and delightful. It's been on the line for a minute. I astound myself with how fucking fire that content is. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. So I just want as many people to be able to access it as possible. The world is fucking bonkers right now. I guarantee you there is a solution to a problem that you have right now in the Anti-Business School, regardless of if you're a professional or an entrepreneur or a creative. I kind of can't believe how good it is. Anywho, not to toot my own horn, but honk honk. What I'm going to go through in today's episode is a lot of what we cover in the Productivity Powerhouse and Time Master quadrant. Quadrant? Sure, why not? Module. That's the word I was looking for. Thanks, BZ. So if any of this tickles your pickle, I highly encourage you to go to NicoleBZ.com, gain access to the Anti-Business School. Again, I'm not charging for it. And then you can just listen at your leisure. Truly, it'll be there. I mean, at least until I switch platforms, but which tends to happen every 18 months. That's a different story. You know, I used to absolutely love planning and scheduling, and I'm a batch processor, so I could map out an entire year's worth of marketing and content and creation like in one go. And my ego fucking loved it because our egos, our brains, our monkey minds love certainty. It also makes it really easy to work with people to delegate, which is where we spend a lot of our time and energy in the Method to the Madness, because you as a creative, you as a leader really need to be investing your energy, not just in what is a high priority, but also what lights you the fuck up, because there's no reason to be doing this unless you are excited about it, unless you're enjoying yourself, unless you can be successful at it, unless it's giving you this sense of purpose and fulfillment that literally wakes you up in the morning, potentially maybe even the middle of the night. And I don't mean like stress fucking dreams, okay? You know who I'm talking to. I see you. No, it legitimately is something that drives you. And there are a lot of reasons for that. The point being, when you understand what makes you tick and when you understand your why, as Simon Sinek would say, it makes the tough stuff a hell of a lot easier. And as my boyfriend, Andrew Huberman, would talk about, the dopamine hit, the reward is not in the achievement. It's actually in the doing harder things. We release dopamine and oxytocin in our brains to keep us keep going, to keep on keeping on, to reward yourself for taking on the harder task. And goal setting theory, this is about picking bigger, stronger, badder, meaner, harder goals. When you have the confidence, when you've got the skill set, when you've got the blueprint that helps you understand how to resource yourself and systemize your own success, you will achieve bigger, better things because you think you can. You don't know how, you don't know when, but you say yes to it because that is how our brains actually work. Now, one of those beautiful resources is the schematic, is this blueprint, this map, this ability to design each challenge and therefore each pathway to success in your own unique way. Now, there's going to be people like me jibber jabbering at you all day, every day, probably ad nauseum multiplied by 1,000. So tuning into how to discern what's useful for you, what's really going to empower you, what systems, again, and structures you can apply over and over and over again is literally how you support yourself. That's why I'm so invested in this, and especially now. That's why I'm actually making this like a 2-part episode that might not even be released in a row. So we'll just see how it goes. But, my raison d'etre is freedom. And what I've learned very recently is that I define freedom as agency, as choice, the ability to do what I want when I want. And quite frankly, like I love a good like martyrdom, a have to story, like when things get really hard and fucking scary and I feel like the world is crumbling around me, it adds this level of like drama and intrigue to the experience that like most unfortunately I find very intoxicating. And also sometimes I get like completely totally overwhelmed and drown in my own fucking tsunami wave. And there are a lot of things that happened that led me to this place. But I've built this infrastructure. I have faith in my resilience. And despite the fact that I laid on the ground and cried for 2 months straight, I knew that the tides would recede, I would dry myself off, and I would keep going. I had no idea when, I had no idea how, but like I've done this enough, And so that's what I hope to offer you today are different ways, different strategies, different, shall we say, templates, so that you can start to really play with what this schematic might look for you. And it might not look anything at all like some boring ass linear blueprint design. It could look like a tangle of color and threads and mixed media creations, right? Like you do you, boo. And please do you. Please figure out how you work best, because not only is that the crux of this conversation, it's going to evolve. And so what this offers you is the ability to redesign, to renovate, to demolish, and construct your unique strategy. But once you know you can, then you know how to do that. I think every business needs a blueprint. I think every project needs a system that will support you even on your worst day. So if you are going to ugly cry on the floor for 2 months straight, you've got a team, you've got some SOPs. If people are going to show up and they're sick and you're sick, you're able to kind of plug and play and understand what's the bare minimum here. What are my most basic costs? What are my crucial activities? What cannot fall over, or what potentially, if it falls over, will domino effect on the rest of it? When that's all clear, you are able to course correct and pivot like that. Things get very, very fucking clear. And even in the toughest, hardest times, it's actually very easy and simple to maintain your success despite the fact that everything is literally failing. So your blueprint isn't something you can copy and paste from someone else. It is designed to highlight your unique strengths, but also like your flow, aka your creativity and your intuition. When you know how you work best, you can apply this schematic, this design to any situation life throws at you. The crucial, like what I'm most trying to get across here is like, you don't know what's coming. It's going to be something that shocks the shit out of you, that knocks you off your path. It's not going to be the monies that you have in your savings account, or the fuck you fund, or the rainy day fund, or the like contingency planning, or the backup staff, or like, unfortunately, my friend, it's going to be something you never thought was possible. And when you know how to turn possibility into reality, that's what's going to allow you to maintain resourcefulness and resilience in those banana bonkers situations, which we're seeing a lot of, okay? This research discovered that individuals who leverage their creative and intuitive processes are 40% more effective in problem solving under stress. So this isn't just about efficiencies, nor is it about results. It's about creating this framework for quantum leaps in success. It's the difference between solving today's problem or designing a system that solves problems for you. It's like turning your brain into AI, right? So I wanted to just give you, and this is where I really felt like we needed to spend some time here. So I want to share some examples and give you some ideas. And again, as per always, some things that you can play with. Whichever one of these jump out at you, test it, try it. Let me know how it goes for you. This is about you and how you work. I can't tell you that. We're not in conversation. I'm really good at that, but that's not accessible either. So again, there's plenty of resources of mine out there. If any of this alerts you, you kind of go, oh, that sounds interesting. I encourage you to play with it. If it's not specific enough, get onto my website. There are 1,000 fucking exercises and worksheets available to help you with this exact process. So first and foremost, audit your creative and intuitive process. This alone will take me sometimes. I don't ever like to tell people how long something takes because you do you, and you can quantum leap 100%. And some of you are going to have a really strong intuitive knowing around this. Some of you may not have ever asked yourself this question or thought about your particular process or your day-to-day or your energy in this way. I've found it incredibly useful to play with this from a bunch of different perspectives, but audit your creative and intuitive process. So studies from the Journal of Creative Behavior show that understanding your natural ideation process leads to greater productivity and innovation. There's a lot of different ways of doing this. So journaling, scheduling, just completely taking the clock and calendar out of the equation, setting up random check-ins, having an accountability group or like a mastermind that you're talking with. Your creativity isn't random. Ideas might drop in. You might get pings or downloads at times that feel completely like a surprise. But I promise you, when you pay attention to when that's happening, why that's happening, you can start to really, I don't want to say like manufacture because that's not the right word in this context, but like you can turn that faucet on. And so again, that's going to look really different for everybody. I'm going to give you a couple of different examples of how I've played with this with clients, and it's been profound. And I know I've shared these examples before, so thank you so much for being here, especially if you've been here for a long time. Forgive me for repeating myself. But so for me, when I got out of music, I was used to waking up around like, I'd say 10ish in the morning, getting my day started around midday. I'd work until like 6, 7 p.m. at night, and then I would go out. And then when I was working, typically I'd hit a venue at like 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and then I'd be there till like 2 or 3 in the morning. Now, when I shifted out of actual events and tour management and more just into management and band management and sitting behind a computer, my schedule didn't actually change that often because everybody that I needed to talk to and interface with was still out at these gigs in some way, shape, or form, right? And so I was used to staying up till about 4 or 5 in the morning most days. The way my body clock works is I get a ton of energy from being out and about, and it takes me a solid 2 hours to really start to wind down. Now, I can be on my computer working, or I can be at a music festival. It doesn't really matter. Like this level of engagement just like charges me the fuck up. And so it just takes me a minute to discharge that energy. And I know that about myself. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, whenever I stop, like literally engaging with the world, it's a 2-hour wind down process. That's just how I'm wired. I know that because I've experimented with it. I've tested it. I've played with it. And that's just how I'm hardwired. I've stopped fighting that. I'm just not going to fall asleep in 30 minutes. And in fact, the more tired I am, the harder it is for me to fall asleep. Rather than like taking all these different supplements and believe me, I've experimented that as well. I've just accepted this is the way I am. Therefore, I get to build a system that supports that, right? When I stopped that lifestyle and started working in corporate, even though it was cannabis corporate, it completely, I was literally waking up when I needed or when I was used to going to sleep. And that was fucking brutal. This is where I really started like tracking because I had gone such a literal 180 degrees in terms of my own schedule, my own freedom, my own agency. I had to really start paying attention what works now. And long story short, what I soon discovered is I actually have my best ideas early in the morning. And I need just as long of a runway to get up as I do to come down. I've got about 2 hours of kind of like flailing about in the morning, like literally just being, and I don't like to be rushed, and it takes as long as it takes. And I also don't like being told what to do, and I don't like rules. And so all of these like journaling practices and movement practices and hydrating and supplements and coffee, I just needed like a 2-hour window to like get that in. And even saying like, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to journal, I'm going to exercise, I'm going to hydrate and like refuel. And then I'm going to do like, even that was too restrictive and like kind of continues to be, because at the end of the day, like as I'm ramping up and ramping down, like what my body kind of needs and wants does actually vary. And by tuning into that and being like, what do you need in this moment? And giving myself that space to be really like creative and go with the flow, I optimize my ideation. My creativity shows the fuck up. And even though like it's been wild the last couple of years and I've bitched about that enough, and that's not what this episode is about, what I was able to do was continue to create and continue to fucking publish despite the fact that I was not even at my middle, let alone best. And it was enough, you know? And that's what I mean by even on your worst day, you will be supported. What I'm going to ask you to kind of play with is, what times of day do you feel the most creative? That's the first question to really kind of tune into. Again, you might need to be like hardcore and literally start documenting every 15 minutes. Most people that I work with have no fucking idea what's happening all day, every day. Like they just don't fucking pay attention. And that's super normal and super fine. This has to do with having two psychotic parents. The way that I experience time, I've never heard anybody else talk about it in that way. So what works for me, I can almost guarantee won't work for you. And if you told me to write down what I'm doing every 15 minutes, I'd probably punch you in the face. So like find a way to kind of track that, like having a little notepad, you can use something like Toggle, which will literally track every single time you switch like a website or like a project, depending on like how well you program that. And I'm sure there's a lot of project management software out there that will also do that. There are ways that you can kind of automate this and check this, but I've used this story a lot. It's one of my favorites. Dali and Einstein both did this exact same experiment, and they discovered they have their best ideas right before they fall asleep. And so anytime they'd hit a creative block, Dali would make himself a cup of tea. Einstein would kind of hold a bunch of nuts and bolts and screws, and they'd take a nap. It's a superpower. That's a superpower I have yet to harness, napping. Anywho, they'd purposefully fall asleep and then wake themselves up because the tea would spill or the bolts would drop, and then they'd just free write everything that came into their brain. And they would discover these really unique, creative, inspired, intuitive, dream-like ideas that played. That's what I mean by notice when your ideas show up. For most of us, it's either when we first wake up or right before we're going to fall asleep. You can manufacture that. I personally, long drives. There's something about my brain focusing on the road and trying to get somewhere or potentially going fucking nowhere that like allows those ideas to pop in. It also happens a lot when I'm in conversation with people, to the point now that what I'll do is I take a voice memo or I'll text myself ideas as they pop in. For those of us who are creatives, true creatives, and what I mean by that is art is sort of our main gig, if you will, capturing the ideas, the downloads, the pings will foster more. When we kind of just let them go, or we don't pay a lot of attention to them, or we don't invest in our own intuitive gut hits, those of you who don't define yourself as a creative, I'm talking to you right now. When we don't court our muse, when we don't suggest to ourselves, then this energy, you're important and I value you and I'm going to pay attention to you. I might not be in the right space to do it. When I'm in a client session and I have all these ideas popping in, for me to ask my client to hold please while I capture them, not cool. But that's why I have like a journal that I'm writing in at the same time. Now, if I'm in conversation with a friend, that's completely different, or watching a movie or whatever it is. But start to tune into when do those ideas show up. And then the last thing I want to kind of offer you is there is a benefit to paying attention to the time of day, only because it might surprise you. One of my clients in this process, they wanted to start building out a YouTube channel for their business. And what they realized is like right after lunch, they were incredibly prolific and creative. That's generally not when anybody's productive. And so it might surprise you by tracking and paying attention. What you can notice, what she realized is that she typically eats the same thing every day for lunch, which she doesn't do for dinner. But she does have like a later cup of, I can't remember if it was coffee or tea, but there was something about getting a little bit of that like sort of endorphin rush after food and like a little bit of the caffeine and kind of feeling like it was this breaking point in her day. The way she structured her day was like mornings was like the admin, the logistics, the emails, like get her fucking done. And then afternoons tended to be meetings and connection and more of like a free flow since her mornings were so highly orchestrated. And so that midday felt like this like kind of magical moment for her. She wouldn't have known that had we not been paying attention to this. And then did I already say the last thing I want to say? Well, I lied because I'm going to say one more last thing. It takes effort, time, commitment, energy to like get organized. Like the actual step of getting organized is a repetitive task that takes time. And a lot of my people who also don't know what the fuck they're doing at any hour to hour, let alone 15 minutes to 15 minutes, don't realize that to stay organized, it's not typically a once a week kind of thing. In my experience, it's more like at least once a day. And for my like free flower creatives, it's probably like 3 times a day. Because morning probably didn't go according to plan, which will absolutely influence your afternoon and evening. Repeat, right? And so by just taking a few minutes, that's why I love batch processing and calendar blocking, because I can literally drag and drop. Oh, that project didn't happen this morning like I had originally scheduled. Drag it, move it. Oops, now I'm double booked with my therapy session. That's not going there. Move it to the next day. Oh shit, so-and-so is counting on me to have this done. I better let them know that I'm not going to get to this thing today. Therefore, we're going to have to push out our deadline for a couple days. That's, when I go back to that whole like planning and our egos taking this giant like exhale, when we know something's happening, it actually gives us the space to focus on the task at hand right now. So let's talk about that. Ooh, I'm just looking at my notes. This one jumped out. So I'm gonna indulge my own intuitive hit. What we don't realize is that our best ideas don't typically show up when we're rushing and pushing in that like morning admin logistics email brouhaha. They tend to show up when we go, pause, shower, walk, drive. Tuning into that, when that is for you, what that looks like for you. Some people like myself are wired, like I don't like having shit undone. I am the opposite of a procrastinator. And also like I never expect everything to be finished. I like to chip away at things. It took me a long time to tune into that. The ideas, the good shit, it shows up in between the busy. And you can craft that, my friend. You can block out half days. I talk a lot about that in the Diamond Cutter, that Quantum Business Book Club episode. This is all pre-canned. And in as much as creativity just feels and looks like chaos, when you make space for the chaos, it can just be so fucking juicy and rewarding and playful and fun. And it doesn't have to bleed across everything in your life. Now, some of my people are again, I play with this term like true artist. They are hardcore procrastinators. They're not going to get it done until they've missed the 3rd deadline. I love that. I embrace that. Just remember, you need like those 36 hours where your partner, your commitments, your nutrition, your sleep are going to take a step back. And when you can manage expectations and let people know this is how I work best, then it's on them to either participate or not. Okay, so now let's get into this delegation map. I talked a little bit about this in the Method to the Madness, but I didn't have time to really like dig into it. Again, I go into each one of these in the Anti-Business School and that productivity powerhouse. And I wanted to share a couple of examples that I've used religiously that really, really, really support me. So there's the talk to the manager, there's the productivity quadrant, and the focus wheel. Okay. Focus wheel, I'll start there. We're going to go backwards in that. Focus wheel is when you're really freaking the fuck out and you're telling yourself all of the reasons why you're going to fail. This isn't going to work. That person can't. It's not enough, blah, blah, blah. You draw a circle, you divide it in 4, then you draw an X through that. So you've got 8 pieces and you start at essentially like just under 9 o'clock and you write the thing that you know to be true. There's not enough hours in the day. Then you go to the second thing. Well, technically there's 24 hours in a day. I'm probably going to aim to sleep at least 6 of those, which like, I guess actually gives me 18 hours a day. What I did there was write down a fact, as opposed to there's not enough hours in the day, which is hyperbolic, right? It's extreme. It's exaggerating. We're using that fear force energy to fuel us in some way. We're writing down something we know to be true. There are actually 18 hours in the day. Okay, well, and then when I take out all of my commitments and I need to like shit, shower, and shave, I'm left with like 6 probable hours. Then the next one is, well, if I dedicated all 16 hours or all 6 of those hours to this problem, it could get solved. I have other work that needs to get done. So I actually have 2 hours and we're making our way around the wheel. It doesn't matter where you land. What matters is how you feel when you get there. And you're probably going to be somewhere at like a level 3. Like it's fine because you've just shown the ego, the monkey mind, the brain that loves certainty and planning and fucking knowing what's going to happen when. Like actually, there are some very true things here that I can accept and then use that as a platform to leverage from. It's a really powerful exercise. Test it. Let me know. There's a template in the Anti-Business School and the Biz Boost. That was an exercise from the Biz Boost time week. Anywho, this next one is super, super fucking powerful for everybody who doesn't know how to delegate. There's a bunch of exercises. If you don't know how to delegate, I wonder if you know how to build out workflows and SOPs. Please explore that module in the Anti-Business School. I don't think I've actually done a podcast episode on like building out oh no, I have done one on processes for sure. Anywho, so check that out. But so what you're going to now do is build like a quadrant. So just a plus sign. So quadrant, just four squares, right? And so what we're going to talk about is on the top is important, on the bottom is unimportant, and then on the left side is urgent, on the right side is not urgent. So we have important, urgent, in quadrant 1. Underneath that, on the right side, we have important, not urgent in quadrant 2. On the left side, we have not important but urgent in quadrant 3. And then we have not important, not urgent in quadrant 4. Replay that back if you need it. So there's 4 quadrants: important, not urgent, not important, urgent, not important, not urgent, urgent, not important. The point of this is for those who don't know how to delegate, what I want you to do is firstly get an understanding of everything you have to quote unquote do, map it, put them in these quadrants. Where you actually want to start, this is counterintuitive to the max, because what we think about are like the I don't want to, but it has to get done, as in the like not important, urgent. Don't start there. Start with not important, not urgent. That's where you want to start delegating your tasks because it's low stakes. It's not important. It's not urgent. So you're going to have the space to not just show someone how to do it, but to support them, correct them, and get them to a place where you actually feel like they know how to do the thing because it wasn't urgent. And also like, it's not that important. So again, like kind of low risk, low stakes, right? You're then going to move to not important, urgent, so that there is a little bit of a time crunch on it. That's actually going to be really useful for whomever you're delegating to. Deadlines, like in one way, shape, or another, are pretty motivating. But again, it's a low stakes game. So when you start to delegate, start with not important, not urgent, then move to not important, urgent. Here is the catch 22, where I want you spending most of your time is important, not urgent, and potentially not important, but urgent. So you as the leader, you as the boss, you as the creative, when it's important but not urgent, it's a pretty magical place to be. What that says to me is you are leading your business. You are electing to take on these tasks. And they are things that are probably pretty big. They take a lot of investment. They take a lot of planning. They've got a long leash, right? That's why it's not urgent. When you know you're spending most of your time in these spaces, you're leading your business. You're working on your business, not in it. So that's the kind of like pull back the curtain, see behind the scenes of why this is such a powerful exercise. And I will guarantee you a lot of what you're probably doing right now, if you're still with me on this episode, is in the urgent, not important quadrant. Think emails, think meetings, think like all of your busy work. We get that dopamine hit from getting shit done, urgent, but not important. But like it's not moving the needle in your business. And so that's why we'll practice delegating with not important, not urgent, which is never where people start. It's usually the urgent category quadrant side of the box. And then they're disappointed and dismayed that things aren't getting done properly because there wasn't the amount of time it takes to truly delegate something to somebody for you to feel safe, to let your hands off the wheel, to give them the space and the faith and the trust to be successful, right? I would also just like to add before we kind of move on, you can do the work you love. Like you really can. And if you're filling your entire day, all day, every day with shit you hate doing, or you find yourself frustrated, resentful, or annoyed by, stop. Just stop, drop, and roll, my friend. Like, you're doing it wrong. It's not often that I like to like throw those out there, but like, you didn't sign up for this to hate your fucking job. Like, you didn't. And if that's where you're at right now, like, call me, email me, do the anti-business school. But like, it doesn't have to feel like that. I promise you. Delegation is going to be your accelerant, your catalyst for figuring this out. And also, believe me, I know I've delegated a million times and it didn't work out. There's no one else that can do what I do. I'm not arguing with you on that. But what I am suggesting is there might be a different system or structure available so that you can feel supported and not just do the work that you're best at, but also do work that you love. When you figure this out, you can rinse, wash, repeat. That's what this is all about, is creating this replicable, repeatable system so that no matter where you find yourself or what you find yourself doing, you're able to resource yourself effectively so you can show up on your worst day and feel supported. So look, I get it. Systems aren't sexy. Like, I pedestalize creatives and artists, but like, my creativity is fucking systems and patterns. Like, it's annoying. It took me a long time to even like fess up to that. But you know what is sexy is like being able to squeeze in that morning session, if you know what I'm talking about, because you have a system in place. You can shuffle what's happening because you're organized. You know when you work best. You know how you work best. You know what your bare minimum is. You know what your crucial tasks are. You know what your workflows are. Like, even at the most grandiose level, you're going to have a beat on this because you've built these blueprints. You know what the workflow looks like. You know how to optimize yourself. They're like the skeleton of scalability. And not just because like Tony Robbins and whatever his like lackey's name is, but these simple step-by-step processes help you understand what next, even if you have no fucking idea what it's going to look like. Any time you find yourself, and this is actually like more probably an important question to ask now than ever. If you're doing something over and over again, ask yourself, how can I make this simpler, faster, automatic, or potentially unnecessary? ChatGPT has the answer for you, or whatever AI that you're playing with. And if you're not playing with, start playing, my friend. Because you can even build templates and workflows and custom GPTs and checklists for all of these repeatable tasks. Like, it'll do your grocery list. It'll do your monthly budget. It'll build out your SOPs. You can train it to speak in your voice and it'll email for you. Like, there is so much now that could come off your plate. It's wild, and not in a scary, they're going to take our jobs kind of way. It's honestly making me the most creative I've ever been because I finally have a sounding board that I can tap into anytime and can pull up all of this data and research that I can then leverage myself off of. That's where I'm pulling all of the fucking research that I'm fact checking, but bringing into these episodes because it's so easy now. This is never about doing more. And it's not even about doing less. It's about quantum leaping your success. When you align your systems with your strengths, you protect your creative energy, you contain it, and then you can fucking harness it. It's like I was going to say a bomb, but that also feels like I've been using a lot of bomb and fire analogies, and I don't think that's like appropriate right now. But you know what I'm trying to say? It's exponential. That's a better way of putting it. You unlock the ability to make these quantum leaps. There's a whole thing about timeline jumping. And if you're curious, at me about that. But like, these aren't small incremental gains. These are world changing shifts, and they're available to you right now. A study from MIT, thanks ChatGPT, shows that focusing on quote unquote flow state activities can increase productivity by 90%. When we talk about the Pareto principle, 20% in yields 80% out, and that being applicable to almost anything. When I talk about batch processing or block scheduling, what we're talking about is harnessing that flow state, because when you're in it, like, everything happens and it's easy and it's fun. That's how you know you lose track of time. You get 18,000 more things done. Every time I write a to-do list out, it's playing on that ego's need, the monkey mind's need to have everything mapped out. I don't look at it again. I'll have 4 sheets going along with like journals and calendars. And then I'll get to a space where I'm feeling totally overwhelmed. I go back to those lists. Everything on them has gotten done. That's what I'm talking about. What's one thing, one of the systems, one of the tools that I've talked about that you could apply today? I'd love to know, but you don't have to tell me. Just like give it a go. Whether it's tracking your creativity and your creative process, whether it's really getting clear on what you can delegate and looking at some of these little hacks to get more tuned into your day. Oh, I left out the third one, didn't I? But now I have like 4 more ideas about different ways you can do that too. I'll just tease it out here. Ask the manager. So making a list of all of the things you know you can do, and then all of the things that are just they're not going to get done immediately. And that's okay. And we're just going to ask that they get taken care of. It's like a really interesting, fun way to kind of play with like the overwhelm energy and like tune into your own trust and knowing and quantum leap to that creative space. If that wasn't enough time for you, you know where to look. And I think actually on that note, that was enough time for me. So I'm going to hop off. If this episode felt a little like out of place, I encourage you to go listen to its part 1, The Method to the Madness. I'll have to think of a super fun title for this one as well. ChatGPT, here we go. And NicoleBZ.com, the anti-business school is going to pop up. It's free. Please check it out. And I think that's all I got for the now. Thank you for being here. I do this for you because I love you.